Good morning, dear delegates. It's a pleasure to have you all in this forum. We hope this webinar enriches you on eye tracking technology. I, on behalf of my team, welcome you all to the second session on day 2. Yesterday, you were introduced to a new concept of eye tracking. Today, we will acquaint ourselves with the various metrics associated with eye tracking mechanism. I will also be speaking on some of the terminologies that are associated with the system. The learning objectives of this session would be you all delegates should be able to recall the various eye movements and enumerate few terminologies and metrics associated with eye tracking technology to at least 50% at the end of this session. Science is such a great tool in the hands of man, helping him to explore the unknown world to various degrees. It has evolved over the past many years, and its technological development is very much evident in this present world. Eye trackers, to reiterate, are advanced physiological systems of measurements, recording eye motions and gaze locations across time and task. It is a common method for observing the allocation of visual attention, how objects are perceived, what elements are attracted, and things that are omitted. The use of eye tracking technology has been growing rapidly in recent years. Over the past several decades, there has been a dramatic increase in the quantity and variety of studies employing eye tracking technology. Why we should track the eye? The structure of the eye limits high visual acuity, that is, ability of our eye to discern shapes and details of whatever we see. This visual acuity is limited to a very small portion of the visual field, that is, it is limited only to the foveal region. I will be explaining to you about the fovea as I explain the structure and the physiology of the eye in the next slide. As a result, there is a strong motivation to move the eyes so that fovea is pointed at whatever stimulus we are currently looking or thinking about. This is the iMind link that makes eye tracking a reliable tool for exploring questions related to the visual attention. Where we look at and how long is influenced by cognitive processes beyond attention, such as perception, memory, to name a few. While the eye-mind link is not absolute, it is generally true that the eyes reflect a mental processing of whatever we are looking at a particular moment. This makes eye tracking broadly applicable to most research that explores mental processes. A basic understanding of the physiology of the eye and how the eye moves is helpful for executing a successful eye tracking study. In 1596, Du Laurens, a French anatomist and a medical scientist, rightly called the eyes as the windows of the mind. The eye functions to gather, focus, and transduce light. Light enters the eye via the pupil, whose diameter controls the amount of light entering the eye and the resulting image intensity. The cornea and the lens focus and accommodates this light on to the retina, forming an inverted but a clear image. Fovea is an area of high visual acuity situated in the center of the retina that is highly packed with photosensitive rods and cones. We must be aware that the rods perceive black and white and enable night vision, whereas cones perceive color and provide central and detailed vision. Light that falls on the fovea forms the center of the visual field, and the densely packed receptors within this region encode a high level of detail. That is, the fovea captures a detailed image of whatever the eye is currently looking at or pointing at. The fovea is quite small, about 1.5 millimeter in diameter. That's about the size of a thumbnail in an arm's length. And the most sensitive region is only limited to as 250 to 300 micrometer in diameter, representing just 1 degree of visual angle. Outside the fovea is the parafovea, whose visual acuity is much weaker. And this is followed by the periphery that detects only low frequency visual information. As the fovea is so small, the eye must meander across the visual environment to gather information about it. The retina converts light energy into electrical impulses and through the optic nerve conveys these informations to the visual cortex that is situated in the occipital lobe of the cerebrum for interpretations and reactions. Eye movements are believed to be a precise mapping of the cognitive processes. They are controlled by numerous complex nerve background, and the motoric operations are achieved by the eye muscles. The eye is rotated by two pairs of direct muscles and a pair of oblique muscles functioning as antagonist pairs. The rotations are approximately symmetrical in nature. The muscles control the 6 degrees of freedom of the eye. The lateral rectus and the medial rectus is responsible for moving the eye in the horizontal plane. The remaining four muscles control the vertical motion of the eye. That is, the superior and the inferior rectus for elevation and depression, and the superior and the inferior oblique for controlling the intorsion and extorsion. Eye movements are broadly categorized into two main categories: stabilizing movements that try to hold the eye, or rather the image, on the retina, and this includes fixations, smooth pursuit, and the nystagmus. The saccadic movements that move the eye around the visual field and brings objects of interest to the area of sharp vision, which includes saccades and vergence. Why do we need to know about these eye movements? Remember, we are talking about eye trackers, and these devices measure the various eye movements. It is but pertinent for us to be aware of all these eye movements. It will only help us in research as to what exactly do we need to measure regarding that particular eye movement, like duration, amplitude or velocity, count, etc. Proceeding on with the most important stabilizing movement of the eye is the fixation. They are momentary pauses of eye gaze at a spatial location. During fixations, the image of an object of interest is held approximately stable on the retina. It is an emphasis on one particular point where the eye spends more time. As told earlier, the fovea is very small. The eye is unable to acquire high quality information from the entire visual field in a single fixation. Hence, it is necessary for the eye to rove frequently. Most fixations are relatively short as a result, and they generally last between 100 to 1000 milliseconds, with the majority being recorded between 200 to 500 milliseconds. They vary in length depending upon a variety of factors such as the nature of the visual stimuli, quality of the information that is being processed, the present cognitive load, the task purpose and complexity, and the skill and attention of the individual. The eyeball is still standing and information is being input or decoded. Hence, we can say fixation is a period of time during which the eyes are fixated on a visual target, perception is stable, and the eyes are taking in visual information. Here is a study by Huang et al. That sought to measure the fixation duration of the position of the graphic health warning labels on a tobacco package. The results revealed that the participants fixated longer on health warning areas than on the tobacco branding areas. The study concluded the duration of the visual fixation on the labels was longer when they were displayed at the top and middle rather than at the bottom. The eye does not lie still during fixation. Three different movements can be appreciated. They are tremors, that are very small movements that are made during fixation. This is because it is impossible to keep our eyes 100% still. Drifts are slow movements away from the center of the fixation that the eye makes automatically. Microsaccades are the actions taken to complete and bring the drift back to the center of fixation. These movements prevent perceptual fading of the retinal images and perception of finer details in high spatial frequencies. Another important concept to understand about eye movements is the smooth pursuit. Smooth pursuits occur when we slowly track an object. For example, a ball passing through the air. These movements keep the image of an object on the retina more or less stable and capable of tracking an object moving at the speed of 5 to 30 degrees per second. Strictly speaking, these movements are not under voluntary control. We can't perform a smooth pursuit unless we have something to follow. For example, if you look at a white wall, you could not make a smooth pursuit from one side to the other. You would make numerous fixations and saccades. If, however, a light is reflected on the wall, you would produce a smooth pursuit that follows light. This research article by Murray et al. Aimed to study the various smooth pursuit eye movements velocity and amplitude along with saccadic parameters in sports related concussions. They concluded that these movements were slower compared to the saccadic movements in sports related injuries. Nystagmus are patterns of smooth motion to track an object as the head motion causes it to move across a field, followed by a rapid motion in the opposite direction to select another object. Physiological nystagmus can occur in response to motions of the head called as a vestibular nystagmus or patterns in the visual field called as optokinetic nystagmus. When a visual scene is inspected, periods of fixation are interrupted by short and leaping motions called as a saccade. These saccades are fast and accurate ballistic eye movements. Ballistic meaning jerk like. By means of these goal directed eye movements, the fovea is brought to interesting spots of the scene, that is, repositioning the fovea to a new location in the visual environment. For instance, a common observation is that when a subject views the picture of a person, the nose and mouth are fixated more often and first in sequence compared to other objects of the picture, such as the black spot on the cheek. Adequate object recognition normally requires foveal representation of the to be recognized object. The average length of a saccade is between 20 to 35 milliseconds. These saccades are useful and an efficient way for the brain to sample the visual environment. They are the quickest movements the body produces. During a saccade, the eye moves so rapidly that it is said we are technically blind. Saccadic eye movements can be executed voluntarily as a response to a visual stimulus and also as a corrective movement associated with optokinetic or vestibular movement. During these movements, there is no information that is taken in because these movements are extremely fast. A reverse saccade is called as a regression. Glissades are movements that the eye produces to correct for an overshot saccade. For example, if we move from point A to point B and overshoot at point B, a glissade will bring the fixation back to the intended target. Tatham et al., in his study, aimed to measure the speed and accuracy of saccades in patients with glaucoma. The study revealed that these patients had lower saccadic movements compared to healthy individuals. The study concluded patients with glaucoma had significant differences in eye movements compared to healthy subjects, with a relationship between slower and less accurate eye movements and worse glaucoma severity. Vergence movements rotate the eye inwards and outwards so that they fixate roughly at the same point in space regardless of the distance. They are slow and disconjugate movements, meaning the eyes move in opposite directions relative to one another. These movements rotate the eye towards each other in order to focus on near targets and in opposite direction for far off targets. Torsional eye movements can be defined in two different ways, namely as a rotation about the line of sight or gaze and as a rotation about an anterior posterior axis that's fixed in the head. Anterior posterior meaning forward to backward movement. These movements are generally limited to angles of less than 10 degrees and are necessary for stabilization of the retinal images and also for the maintenance of correspondence of the images in both the eyes. We have seen a number of eye movements in the past few slides. Of all, more eye tracking studies have been performed on eye fixation, saccades, smooth pursuit movements, and in nystagmus. Coming to eye trackers, these devices consist of projectors, cameras, and algorithms. The projectors create a pattern of near infrared light on the eyes. These infrared light is generally invisible to the human eye. The sensors take high frame rate images of the user's eye and the patterns. The image processing algorithms find specific details in the user's eye and reflection patterns. Based on these patterns, mathematical algorithms calculate the eye's position and gaze point, for instance, on a computer monitor. Before I go deep into the metrics of eye tracking technology, it is mandatory for me to explain about two basic terminologies. One is the gaze or the gaze points, and the next is the area of interest, commonly called as the AOI. Let us talk about gaze. The dictionary gives the meaning of gaze as to look at something for a long time in admiration or in appreciation. It is a point on an image where the individual is looking. It constitutes the basic unit of measure and it is a most prominent metric in eye tracking literature. One gaze point equals one raw sample captured by the device. Let me clarify fixation from gaze. Fixation refers to the point where the individual's gaze stops moving for a period of time so that the individual can take in information from that point on the image. That is, if a gaze point is maintained for a duration, it becomes a fixation, a period in which our eyes are locked towards a specific object. In this article, Smidikova and her colleagues aimed to investigate teachers' attention distribution over space. The results showed that the teachers' gazes were unevenly distributed across both space and time. The next important terminology in the literature of eye tracking technology is the area of interest, abbreviated as AOI. It is necessary to introduce an area of interest as majority of the parameters is given by the software for a particular area of interest. They are predefined regions in the stimulus that the researcher is especially interested in gathering data about. They link eye movement measures to parts of the stimulus used. They are chosen by the researcher and can be changed or selected during the analysis of the data. Generally, they are defined slightly larger than the objects of interest. Here is a pack of pasta. I am interested to know how many fixated at the free offer and how many fixated at the price tag. Through the eye trackers, I was able to ascertain that 60% fixated at the free offer and 30% looked at the price tag in the first instant. There can be other areas of interest as well. For example, the expiry date or the brand of the pasta, etc. Here is an article by Selingi et al., who sought to determine using eye tracking technology what children noticed the most when they looked at the dentist. 41 children viewed 10 images of dentists of different genders and ethnicities and wearing different attires on a computer screen. What is more important is that the area of interest were predefined on each of these images. Example like eyes, mouth, shirt. And the visual assessment illustrated that the dentist face had the highest concentration of fixations followed by the attire. And the study concluded revealing that the children fixated most on the dentist face, particularly the circumoral area, followed by their attire. The marked areas of interest are reflected in these images. Let us see the various metrics or the parameters that this technology has to offer. Eye tracking measures have been conceptualized in different approaches. One such method is the scales of measurement. Here, three categories can be identified. The temporal scale means measuring the eye movements in a time dimension. Spatial measures eye movements in various dimensions of space. And count measures eye movements on a count or a frequency basis. The temporal scale answer the when and how long questions in relation to cognitive processing. Gaze duration, first fixation duration, time to first fixation, saccade duration are some of the examples of this scale. In the spatial scale, questions of where and how of the cognitive processes are being addressed. It depends on factors like locations, distances, directions, sequences, transactions, and spatial arrangements, to name a few. Metrics like fixation position, fixation sequence, saccade length are associated with this scale. Count scale measures play an important role in revealing the importance of visual materials. Total fixation count, average fixation count, saccade count, interscanning count are some of the few metrics associated in this count measure. Eye trackers provide several measures of visual behavior that are relevant for understanding the interpretive processes. These are categorically referred to as the movement measures that quantify the patterns of eye movement through space during saccades, including the distance between successive saccades and the speed of saccades. Position measures that quantify the location of gaze in a coordinate space like that of a computer monitor. The numerosity measures that quantify the frequency with which the eyes fixate and saccade while perceiving a scene. And finally, the latency measures that allows for an assessment of the temporal dynamics of fixations and saccades that includes first and subsequent fixation duration and saccade duration. After seeing the various scales of measurement, let me explain one metric from each of the above scales of measurement. Gaze duration or the dwell time falls in the temporal concept, and this is understood as one visit in an area of interest and is a sum of all fixations and saccades in a particular area of interest. In other words, it is a total amount of time spent looking within a particular area of interest. These can be calculated only if the area of interest were set for the stimulus. This gaze duration is used to check the participants' interest in an object or to check their level of informativeness. A higher time may be an indicator of uncertainty and poor awareness of situation, of difficulty in extracting information from a display. In the eye tracking research of reading processes, an increased gaze duration is related to less frequent words. And this is also a key parameter in gaze based interactions with computers, as it is a most important criterion for activating the button function on the screen. The sum of all the gaze duration in a particular area of interest over a trial is called total gaze duration or total dwell time. Scan sequence is an example from the spatial scale of measurement. It's actually the visualizations of routes of oculomotor events through space within a certain time span. They reveal how the eye fixed path characteristics to a particular participant and his or her viewing pattern. They describe as a complete saccade fixate saccade sequence. The length is given in pixels and it is a sum of the distances between the gaze point samples. This measure is more valuable for exploratory tasks in comparison with the goal directed ones. It is the graphic representation of all fixations and saccade on the stimuli, one after the other, so it is possible for us to see the visual activity of the individual. Let me give you an example from the count measure. Let us see about fixation count. This count is the number of fixations in a trial and it is correlated to the gaze duration or the dwell time. The higher number of fixations, the poorer the search capacity of an individual or the poorer structure of the stimuli. That is, the informativeness of the stimuli is high, the number of fixation decreases. More fixation on a particular area of interest may indicate that the area of interest is more important or more noticeable to the participant. It is more often used parameter in the eye tracking research. The other parameters like time of interest, events, intervals, scan paths, and details of heat maps will be discussed by the next speaker, Dr. Sujita. Valid and accurate eye movement measures are possible only if the eye tracker is credited with good calibration, trackability, accuracy and precision, and with a higher sampling rate. Let us see about calibration. To obtain the gaze direction in space, eye trackers need to be calibrated. During the calibration, the eye tracker measures how the participant's eyes reflect to light and the eye movements are gauged in relation to known metric information of a visual pattern presented before the participant. After calibration, the gaze direction can be mapped to the scene camera image. A calibration procedure for each individual is required in order to obtain a valid eye movement data before using an eye tracker. This is done by following a point or multiple points, video, or other graphic element that moves across the screen. Let us see what trackability of the eye tracker has to offer. This refers to the efficiency of an eye tracker for a variety of participants. It can be quantified by dividing the number of valid raw data samples recorded by the total number of samples that should have been captured during the tracking period. Trackability is an essential feature and added benefit to adjust resolutions of the number of eye cameras, quality of camera sensors, and number and positioning of infrared illuminators, as well as parameters to the image processing algorithms. With respect to the evaluation of data quality, it is important to distinguish between accuracy and precision, two concepts that are often mistakenly treated as equivalent in the eye tracking literature. Given the repeated measurement of an actual value, accuracy is defined as the mean difference between the measured and true value. In contrast, precision, also referred to as reproducibility or repeatability, is the degree to which the repeated measurement of a set of true values produces the same or similar set of measured values regardless of the accuracy of these values. Consequently, measurement can be accurate but not precise, precise but not accurate, both accurate and precise, or neither accurate nor precise. During data collection, accuracy and precision are used as indicators of the eye tracker data validity. A system with good accuracy and precision will provide more valid data as it is able to truthfully describe the location of a person's gaze on a screen. Both these factors are contingent on participant and stimuli properties, illumination in the test environment, calibration quality, data collection, procedure, and the eye's position in the track box. The required level of accuracy and precision depends upon the aim or the nature of the eye tracking study. The sampling frequency of an eye tracking system refers to how many times per second the position of the eyes is registered by the eye tracker. It is measured using the unit hertz, which refers to the number of samples per second. Most modern eye trackers have sampling frequency ranging from 25 to 2000 hertz. The higher the sampling frequency, the better is the ability to estimate the true path of the eye when it moves. Sampling frequency affects what you can do with your eye tracker in a number of ways. Precise measurements of small saccades are so sensitive that a higher sampling frequency is necessary to estimate them accurately. Sampling frequency is definitely the most important property of an eye tracker compared to accuracy and trackability on participants. This reflects high technical property, and manufacturers use this feature to boost their sales. So, to summarize, there is an eye mind link that makes eye movements or the eye twitchings so special. Fixations and saccades are the eye movements of interest in most of the scientific research work. Temporal, spatial, and count are the basic scales of measurements, and an eye tracker with a good calibration, trackability, accuracy, and precision, and with a higher sampling rate are favored by the research scientist. Thank you for your time. These are my references. I would be happy to receive questions here. Thank you once again for your precious time and your patient listening. Be safe and have a good day.